Welcome to the Posh Sessions. I am your host, Posh. We are back in Lemy studio on this beautiful Friday quarantine time. I have a special guest with me today. I'll introduce him in a little bit. Wanted to do something a little bit different. I know you guys are normally used to me having, fun, entertaining episodes, and I promise this is going to be just as entertaining, just on a different level. I think that is very important for us to be well-rounded and well-balanced. And the guest that I have with me today is somebody that I consider a very good friend of mine, almost like a life coach. He's kind of stuck with me, whether he knows it or not. I've reached out to him throughout the years for many different things, from financial advice to health advice, relationship advice. So I think it's safe to say that he's kind of stuck with me. Of course, I have the greatest audio engineer in the world. We got Mr. Lemy Currey on the audios. We had to improvise because Lex chickened out. Lex said that he wasn't trying to fuck with no coronaviruses and bring that shit home. So I understand, but we had to improvise. So we actually have a new cameraman for this episode. Hopefully he knows my angles. And we have another special guest calling in straight from New York City. I'm gonna do him like that. Rock Nation Brunch Twitter. Marv is gonna be calling in, and he's gonna be giving his perspective on today's topic. Obviously, due to everything going on, I had to postpone my live show at Novelty, but it is going to be set for a later date, hopefully when everybody's allowed to be outside. But of course, if you got coughing and shit, don't just support from afar. Other than that, we're going to take a short break and we're going to introduce our guest. It's the Posh Sessions. And we are back, and I got some very special guests with me today. One by way of my phone in New York. We got Mr. Marv with us, Rock Nation Brunch Twitter.
That's funny. More of employed by, but that's cool. How's everyone doing?
You see? Stunting. Bright and early in the episode.
That's funny. I just see the jokes on Twitter. I don't want to fall into them. You know what I mean?
And we got a very special guest with me today as well. We got my boy CJ Casanova, as people may know him on Twitter. And today's episode, see, y'all don't know the history that I have with CJ. I've been picking CJ's brain like forever and a day now when it comes to relationships and all my men issues, all the way down to gym and fitness.
That's correct. That is correct.
And having a strong mind and a strong will, and also all the way down to finances, which is what today's episode is about, actually.
Absolutely.
So for the people who may not know who CJ is, what do you want the people to know about you?
I just like the people to know that I'm Black, I'm a minority, I'm all about success, progression, and redefining statistics, redefining odds. That's pretty much it. I want to be a professional deal maker. I don't want to be put under any one genre. You can just call me a professional deal maker. You know what I mean? A professional deal maker. If I can't have it, a colleague of mine can. You know what I mean? If I can connect the dots, I will. You know what I mean?
You're the plug.
You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to say the plug. I just want to be able to bridge the gap.
The heavy talk.
You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to call that. I would just like to say I like to just bridge the gap and each one teach one, and there's strength in numbers. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I wouldn't know what to call myself. I'm not really self-centered, so I don't even think of that. You know what I mean? So I'll go off of whatever any other people label me.
And for those who may not know, you recently launched your own podcast.
Yeah, I am one half of the MyWay, MyTerms self-development podcast. My co-host is Josh, better known as The Promiser. We do have our own self-development show, and it's an honor to be here with you. I look forward to being a passenger in your vehicle today. You know what I mean? Allowing you to navigate us through this episode, so thank you, Posh.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you for joining me. And thank you, Marv, for joining me, because I know I hit you up very last minute, and I said, you know what? You seem like you know what you be talking about.
He's in New York, and he might have nothing to do right now.
No, it was more like you might know what the fuck you talking about, you know? So let's try to get some heavy hitters in the building with me today, and let's talk about finances, because I think that it's important. You know, everybody has different walks of life. And I think that it's important, especially during these times, right? We're right in the middle of what the nation has declared, where the world has declared a pandemic with the coronavirus. And we've seen a lot of changes. You know, people woke up one day and they didn't have a job anymore. People woke up one day and they realized that their way of living was going to be changed. And it definitely wasn't for the better. And I've been one of those people fortunate enough to still have a job. I know you're somebody who's still fortunate enough to still have a job. We both work from home. CJ actually is a business owner. So, you know, he kind of has a sense of control over, you know, his business, although I'm sure that it's affected you as well. So I think that, you know, I tend to put out a lot of like entertainment and a lot of lighthearted episodes, but I think that this is something that should be talked about as well, you know?
Right.
So I know for myself, also being a minority, I've told the story before in a previous podcast how, you know, I'm of Dominican descent. So I was born in Jersey, so I'm Americanized, but my grandmother came to America with the dream, right? That's what everybody, you know, dreams of. You know, America is the land of opportunity. This is where you can make shit happen. This is a capitalist, you know, nation. There's equality here, as opposed to maybe in Dominican Republic, there was no middle class. And I think even to this day, there really isn't a middle class. You either have it or you don't.
And that's where it's going. That's where it's going.
Yep.
There's not going to be a middle class once this is over with.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm loving that you're getting into
this.
This
eliminates the middle class.
Yeah, so I'm sorry.
It puts the rest of the people on the same kind of like level. It puts everyone else on the same level. And there's a bunch of people that are going to grow accustomed now to being off of government assistance too, that have never been on it. So, things are going to start changing really quickly.
Things have already begun changing. To piggyback with what you guys are saying, I think in regards to what Posh was saying, I think everybody woke up one day and realized that it's time to be grown men and grown women right now. You know what I mean? I think a lot of us took life for a gamble up until this situation happened. And now it's forcing everybody to look in the mirror, whether you want to or you don't. You know what I mean? Whether you're self-employed or you're employed by somebody, you know what I mean? Like, life has turned into the fourth quarter with 2 minutes left. And it's a matter of, did you prepare for anything like this? Did you fuck off all of your money thinking that, you know, you had the luxury of getting the next paycheck? Or did you live, you know, below your means? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that for a lot of us, myself included, I have to really say that it has forced me to, you know, look in the mirror and see what I can do differently, because I always pride myself in coming from a hardworking family. That's all I've known. All the women in my family are very strong women. And it's been a battle for me only because no situation is the same, right? And on top of the fact that we're living in times where there's a lot of uncharted territory, you know, and not to say that they didn't have their own struggles growing up. However, it was different times. So I find myself where, you know, like if I look at my mom, well, my mom is married. So there was always two incomes in the household, whether my dad wanted it or not, because my dad was very old school and he always wanted my mom to be a stay-at-home mom and raise his girls. But my mom, because she came from an impoverished upbringing, she never believed in just having that liability be on my dad. She always wanted her own out of that fear of not having and growing up not having.
Great
then
woman.
I look at my aunt, who also came from Dominican Republic, again, with that dream of America is the land of opportunity. And, you know, she went from working in a warehouse, because in New Jersey, I mean, that's really like a lot of the industry is what it is, you know, working in a warehouse up until the day that she went into labor, then decided that, you know what, I want more for myself and I want more for my son now. So she transitioned into getting her cosmetology license and was a beautician for years, then decided, you know what, I'm tired of this shit. Went into real estate, which is how I got into real estate, because I was her assistant.
Nice.
And, you know, now she's a millionaire. You'll never think it looking at her.
As it's supposed to be.
But she's definitely, you know what I'm saying, gotten her bag and earned her stripes in the real estate game. And like I was talking to Marv earlier on the way here, and I was telling him, you know, I admire her because I feel like out of both situations, you know, of immediate women in the family, my grandmother definitely being the OG. Like, if it wasn't for her, none of this would have been possible. We would have still been in Dominican Republic. But then looking at my mom's lifestyle, how she grew up and she had a husband. And then my aunt did not. And she did everything herself as a single mom. Then here am I, where I kind of resonate with her more. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, she came from poverty. Like when I say poverty, I'm talking about they didn't even have floors. They had dirt as floors. So her hunger and her ambition is something completely different from mine, because although I was born in the hood in a basement apartment, I didn't see the type of poverty that she'd seen in Dominican Republic.
Yeah, for sure.
So my level, I almost feel sometimes guilty because I find myself sometimes feeling complacent in comparison to maybe the ambition that the women in my family prior to me have.
Well, I'll say, and sorry to cut you off, guilt is good because guilt is going to force you to level up. You know what I mean? Even though you may not, you don't have to beat yourself up, but when you look and you feel guilty for something, that means you could be doing more. You should be doing more. Why aren't you doing more? You know what I mean?
And that's where the I'm an American kind of kicks in, because I didn't see the struggle that they seen. So it's very easy for me to say, well, yeah, I could be doing more. You're absolutely right. There's those days where I feel like I'm not doing enough, but then I also have those days where I feel like the hunger isn't the same because my struggle wasn't the same as them. And although I know maybe sometimes, I really shouldn't be buying that right now because that money could be going to something else. But at the same time, you kind of have that thing inside of you that makes you feel like, well, what the fuck am I busting my ass for if I can't even enjoy something so small? Am I supposed to hoard away all my money and be an extremist?
Well, I'll say this.
So there's two things. Let me jump in here because I'm the same way. Like, I mean, and we're, like, I think CJ, right, if I'm not mistaken, you're first generation born American, or you just grew up here in American culture. Like, I'm first generation born. My parents came from Cape Verde, West Africa, like, grew up in the same village. There's still kids that walk around barefoot there every day, like, on stones and cobblestone streets and everything like that. So, like, last time I went back, still had no hot water in the crib where I was staying, where it's a house that my grandmother grew up in. I have a cousin that lives in the house where my dad grew up in, all that type of stuff. So, same exact way, right? Like, I've been over there, but you can come here and you could buy a $200 pair of shoes and be okay with it. Like, you feel guilty. But at the same time, it's like twofold. Like, yeah, you can live your life because my mom came from that, but she still drives Benz. So, like, I've seen both sides to where it's like, yo, hustle and go do everything that you have to do and acquire as much as you can material-wise and enjoy the money that you're working for, because you can't leave it behind. Like, once you're gone, you're gone. But right now, I would say as it relates to this conversation, we're talking about this pandemic, like, everyone just needs to cut all that shit out. Like, it's time to learn a lot of those habits that we've seen our parents grow up doing and stacking their bread, just because we don't know what's going to happen in a month, 2 months, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of just, like, play both sides on that side.
No, I agree. And I also say that I feel like if you feel guilty, that means you have, you know, we have like the conscience. We have like the good conscience, the bad conscience. If you feel guilty, that means you at least have the balance of the two. So if you feel guilty, that means you know better. If some people don't even understand the emotion of what guilt is because they don't know any better. So they may be a little bit more safe than the person that does, because if you feel guilt, you do know a little bit better, and then we can justify it as humans however we choose to. But in the back of our mind, we know, fuck, you know what I mean? I should be doing better.
At the end of the day, you had the conversation with yourself already, right? Like, you went through that process. There's some people that are just ignorant to the fact, period.
Right. they don't even know how to check themselves.
Yeah,
in other words.
100%. And I think that if we're discussing finances, I think it needs to begin with ourselves. You know what I mean? Because we can't amount money without knowing what our self-value is, what our self-worth is. You know what I mean? We have to have some sort of picture to paint as to what we aspire to have. I feel like if we don't know how to identify what we want to be or what we'd like to eventually become, we're going to always fuck our money off. You know what I mean? Because we're never going to see, we'll never see the bigger picture because we haven't really identified who we are as a person. Or do you view yourself as a king? Do you view yourself as a queen? Yep. Are you a prince, a princess, a servant, or a peasant? You know what I mean? And I don't mean that in anything negative. I just mean it like when you look in the mirror.
Everybody has a role to play. And I think that part of also we should probably say in this episode that not everyone is meant to be a boss.
I agree.
Because I think that there is, especially like now in this generation where everybody feels like, oh, I want to be a business owner and I'm going to get my own money and I want to be my own boss. And everybody gets so caught up in this title of owner or boss or whatever the fuck they want to label themselves without realizing that when you do that, you've pushed yourself in a position. It's not just the title. There's a hell of a lot of work that's going to go into whether you're a successful business owner or if you're just going to be a business owner. I filed this LLC, therefore that LLC belongs to me, but there's no fruits coming from.
100%. And
it's still an expense until there are fruits.
Yeah, right. And I think
money that went out. Like you just spent a couple $100. How are you making that back?
Yeah, and I think we have to look at who's pushing the narrative. As you know, social media is a fucked up place because we'll go on social media and we'll see people pushing the narrative of being your own boss.
Right.
You know what I mean? And the trajectory that it reaches on people, it confuses people. The same person that's telling you to be a boss ain't really no boss.
Right.
So it can get the shit misconstrued really easily, whereas you'll think, oh man, I need to be an entrepreneur. It's not for everybody. I agree wholeheartedly. I'd personally rather be an employee. You know what I mean? But again, when you ain't gonna be no employee. I don't have a choice.
You don't like being told what to do.
Exactly. I don't have a choice, but I'm just telling you what's better for me because, you know, I probably open and close over 5 businesses. You know what I mean? I'll tell you straight up, like my hairline is a product of what's happened. You know what I mean? Still here, but I've got stress. I've got grays in my beard. I'll keep it all the way 1,000.
These
you know what
gray
I mean?
hairs in my edges, honey, they are not forgiving.
You know what I mean? But what happens is there's people on social media pushing a narrative when they're not qualified to even speak on certain things. And it gets a lot of smoke and mirrors where people get the shit confused. And that's why I say, people think it's better to be a certain way when in reality, it's just best to find out what works for you. So I agree with what you're saying.
Right.
You know what I mean? Everybody's not meant to be a boss, but that does not mean you cannot accumulate the fruits of labor to whatever your heart desires. So you don't have to be a boss, but if you still aspire to make $50,000, it's attainable. You don't have to be a boss, but if you aspire to make 6 figures, it's still attainable without being a boss.
A boss.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Not everyone wants to own a fandom, and that's completely okay, but you should just want to do better, period. Whatever it is that you're doing, like, just try to do better. But it's not everyone. You'll get frustrated as a person if you put those expectations on other people to take the approach that you approach or live with the passion towards whatever it is that you do, whether it be business or finance or whatever it is. If you want everyone to operate at that level, you'll drive yourself crazy because, like, that's what makes you unique is, like, how hard you go to something that you believe in.
Right. So when we talk about finances, let's break it down to the basics. And when I say the basics, let's talking about expenses versus saving. In your opinion, CJ, what is that healthy balance? Expenses, what you need to live, how you want to live, as opposed to what you're putting in your bank account for your savings for that rainy day. Again,
I'll always say it always, you have to start with a dream. And when you look at TV or when you look at people in the real world, like what attracts your mind? You know what I mean? Are you attracted to like what level? You know what I mean? And see where you fit in. If you don't have nothing to aspire to have, you'll never know when to put a limit, or you'll never know when to cap things. You know what I mean? I'll say life isn't a game. So I'll say you need to be strict. You know what I mean? I know we're humans. We're always going to go back on the crutch of saying, I'm human, but blah, blah, blah. Yo, what do you want? If you can identify what you want, there's not going to be a crutch to lean on after that. there's only a crutch to lean on when you really haven't decided what you want in life. Because if you know I want to make 60 grand a year and drive a Benz, you're going to do what it has to do to get there. But if you don't know you want to make 60,000, you're just living, you know what I mean, all over the place. You're not going to know what to save. You're not going to know what to spend on. I'll say it's okay to sit on the bench. There's nothing wrong with sitting on the bench for even 3 months. That's short. You know what I mean? The club is always going to be here.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's okay to sit on the bench. It's okay to treat the pandemic as like normal. Like, I've gone plenty times in my times of coming up, purposely don't get a haircut. If you don't have a haircut, your hair is not done, you're not going to go outside. You're going to sit your ass home. You're going to develop.
Right, because you don't want people to see you like that.
You don't want no one to see you because you out of pocket. What is the point of getting a haircut, pulling up to the club, and you can't even afford to be there? You're not missing out on anything.
We were just talking about that. Because you're out of your means.
Yeah, like I just say this, it's simple, man. Like, think of it when you were a child, when you were in high school and you had your first job. You know what I mean? When you can get that 1-bedroom apartment, like you can live off of $25,000 a year. I'm talking about you get a car for $1,000, $2,000, no car payment, or get you an entry-level economy car where you're paying $250 a month. You keep your bills extremely low. You can survive off of $25,000 a year.
You can survive. That's the word. But if
you're on a journey to bigger and better, there's nothing wrong with surviving off of 25 grand. You know what I mean? You might yield 35, 40. I'm telling you to survive off 25. So you use the difference to save however you can. I think people get discouraged when they say, I want to save $500 this month. And then they can only be like, well, once the 29th hits, I only have 150. It didn't reach the goal of 500. Fuck it, I'm going to spend it. Save the 150. Like, at the end of the day, save whatever you can. Create a budget, create a plan, create like a vision board. I'm saying like what it is you want, and do everything that it takes to align yourself to eventually receive those things. You know what I mean? It's that simple.
I'm somebody that was never great at budgeting, just because, like, again, with the family I come from and the culture and everything like that, no matter what it was still kept secret. Like, you don't really share your finances or anything like that. So just even the idea and going back to see just like what you know or what you aspire to have, like, if you've never seen bank accounts with X amount of dollars in them, like, what are you aspiring to have in your savings if you've never seen it? So for me, like, my older brother played that role in my life where, you know, I've seen 6 figures in one account and 6 figures in the other's accounts, and like, oh, okay, cool. Like, that's where I got to get to. And then again, like, you know, to go off Posh of what you said about CJ, like, I've been doing the same for years with CJ, going back to maybe we met each other in like 2010 or 2011. Even when I was at UCF finishing up the school, like, I would stop by CJ's crib. We would talk a lot, and I knew what level he was at that time. And then he would just be pulling up in the hoopty. And I'm just like, oh, okay.
Yo.
Like, and then it just gave me that idea of like, yo, it's just all about personal comfort. Like,
he pulled out the BMW today. The nigga said that the hoopty wasn't gonna make it, so he pulled out heavy today.
Nah, man.
So, like, I pulled up and he rolled down the windows the first time we actually like linked up, like, outside of nightlife. And I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, there's a level of comfort that you have to have with yourself that nothing else really matters. It's like, where are you trying to get to? And then when you get there, you can look back and say like, hey, look, right? Y'all didn't understand what I was doing, but this is why I was rolling down my windows in the hoopty on certain days of the week, and certain days I could pull out my beamer and pull up. So I just can think like having people around too that like give you that type of understanding plays a big part.
I think that's definitely a cheat code, Marv.
That person.
Yeah,
I think that's definitely a cheat code, Marv. But I'll say I'm always going to be conflicting because, you know, I don't want this to be where everyone agrees. Even though I do agree with you, but there's going to be the listeners. The listeners at home are not. Right. There's going to be something that's going to say, "Yo, I don't have a family member that has 6 figures. I don't have a friend that has 6 figures," and that's why I'll always go back and say, "Look in the mirror, be at peace with who you are." It's okay if you don't have the physical looks that you want. It's okay if your bank account's not where you want it to be, but make a mark and find somewhere where you feel comfortable and where you want to reach. Because once you have self-esteem, if I can teach self-esteem to people,
Oh, nigga.
That's all you need. Because if you had the self-esteem, you'll have the self-confidence. You will naturally develop the patience to sit on the bench when you say, you know what, I'm a queen. I just haven't evolved into that yet.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I also think that you know, I was born into a Christian household, whether I live my life that way or not. I think that there are principles that have stuck with me. And one of the biggest things that, you know, I always pull on is in the multitude of counsel, there is safety. So I think that also having a sound support system, you know, and it doesn't have to always be family. Thank God for you, Marv, that you did have an older brother that you could look up to that kind of, you know, went there before you did and laid out somewhat of a blueprint for you to follow and, you know, for you to look up to. Thank God for me. I have my aunt that I can, you know, I can look back and I can, you know, I can call her and I can talk to her about certain things, you know, but if you're somebody out there listening and you don't have that, find yourself a mentor, align yourself back to what CJ was saying. Align yourself with what it is that you want to do. It starts with you and looking at yourself in the mirror and understanding, okay, this is where I'm trying to go. And then find people that are doing where you're trying to go. Align yourself with those people because those people have already been where you're at and they're going to be able to tell you, okay, this is what you do. This is what you don't do. Okay, you have this idea. This is how you go about it. You know, they avoid those pitfalls because they've already walked there before you have.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that, man. That's what. Go ahead, Mark.
Even with all those people around, it's still going to be like the most extremely challenging thing. And self-accountability is going to have to be insane. But, yo, sit down. Like right now is the perfect time to learn how to eat rice and beans, you know what I mean? Make your food stretch for a little bit of time.
That shit needs to be fucking easy, bro. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Find peace.
That shit needs to be easy, bro. We don't even got time to be going back and forth when people want to reach, or if people say they want to be successful. It shouldn't even be a challenge to say we need to go back to the rice and beans. That shit tastes good. You know what I mean? I'm talking to Black and Spanish America. I'm not talking to white America. You know what I mean? And I'm not being racist. I'm talking to the people that come from poverty-stricken oppression. That is already what you used to. Like, we already ate pork and beans, bro. We already ate Kool-Aid with sugar in it. Like, we grew up on it. Like, we got to get back to the basics and never lean on no crutch. Because if you got that crutch, life is real. You can go outside and get killed. You can go outside and not have no money for whatever you want. So there's no need for a crutch. This is basics. If somebody there is to tell you, look, man, if you go by these guidelines, just follow the blueprint. Like, if you don't trust nothing else in life, just find somebody else that's doing better and just do exactly what they're doing. Even if you doubt it, you can't be worse than where you're already at. So why not give it a try? You know what I mean? Why not give it a try to just say, man, let me just get up under your wing, or I'm going to always go back to self-esteem. If you really view yourself as somebody, even if you haven't amounted to it today, if you view yourself as that person, act royal in your own fashion, be treated like a king to get that same respect. You know, if you move like a queen, niggas is going to respect you like a queen. You know what I mean? Whether you pulling up in a nice car or not, people read energy. They feel it. You know what I mean? You can't hide it. You know what I mean? So I just feel like get in line and just want more for yourself. The minute you want more for yourself, even if you don't have the resources, you will naturally accumulate the resources because you will expand your network of people. Right. You know what I mean? You'll say, oh shit, Amber, it's the first time I met you on Twitter. Yo, let's link up again. You know what I mean? It's that simple. You know what I mean? When you see what some people have going on and there's 6 degrees of separation, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know you fuck with Marv the same way I fuck with Marv. Like, we're all that connected.
Yo, Rock Nation Twitter, what up?
I don't know anything about Rock Nation Twitter. I just do work. I just work. That's it.
You know what though?
Yo, there's no $200 dates right now. Everyone should save money.
No $200 dates.
Yo, there is. And again,
I haven't had to buy anyone dinner in a month.
Yo, and speaking
you ain't Uber eating no quarantine bay food.
No, you're out of your mind.
Yo, and speaking of the And the $200 date conversation real quick, even on any subject matter when it comes to finances, because I always see on Twitter where people will bash something really fast. And I feel like the majority of people that bash the things are the people that can't afford those things.
Right.
If you aspire, there was times I aspired to be able to go to the club to buy a bottle to the face when I could not afford it. If you aspire to take a woman on a $200 date, you will not bash it. You will simply sit on the bench and work harder till the day you can afford to be able to court her on that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. It's always going to lead back to who do you see when you look in the mirror? Like, get comfortable in what you see. If you don't like what you see in the mirror, ask yourself why. How can we get to a place where I can be comfortable in my own skin?
Right.
I don't think there's a lot of people really comfortable with their identities.
They're not. There's a lot of people who I feel like have an identity crisis. They're trying to figure out who they are and where do they fit in this world. But I also will say,
and this
like,
is really exposing it since people are stuck at home with themselves and their families and can't really go outside and flex on social media.
That's
people
it.
are losing it.
So
I'm just here like, yo, I'm chilling. Everyone's like, oh my God, how's everything? I'm like, just another day. Like, I'm chilling. Like, I know I can't go outside like that. So it's like, I'm cool. I'm a homebody anyways. I live by myself. I lived by myself for 3+ years with no roommates or anything. So it's like, I'm used to this. I'll be all right. But a lot of people, you see people like kind of going through the emotions, and it's like, just deal with it and go through those emotions now. Because like, hopefully on the other side, then you'd be more comfortable within your own skin.
That's what I'm saying. If you aren't comfortable in your own skin, if you don't have self-esteem, if you don't have self-worth, if you don't know where you want to be, tell me in the same sentence afterwards, how are you going to be able to control your dollar? How? There's no way. If you're not comfortable with who you are, there is no way you can be uncomfortable in your skin while still learning how to manage money in the same sentence. It doesn't correlate.
Well, that's very true, because you see people like, I'll never forget when I was growing up, one of my jobs as a teenager was I was cleaning houses. Mm-hmm. And I remember I used to go to these houses in Metuchen, and there were these big ass homes, beautiful cribs. And there was this one lady in particular, she owned an Italian market in Metuchen. She had a very beautiful home. We used to clean the store. We used to clean her house. But if you would see her, you would never think she had money, because she was wearing the most basic white tee, jeans, no brand shoes. But it makes you think, right? Why is it that us as a minority, our way of showing off our wealth is through the material?
I mean, never had it, so you want it. It's always something. It's material aspirations. And you gotta have certain levels of aspirations. Now, where you direct those aspirations, whether you want to direct them to like a pair of guys that probably run a few $100s, or you want to say like, yo, I want to acquire this house or this building or whatever it is. But I think that's where it comes back to. Like, a lot of people that didn't have want, and when you're able to buy it, like, and you're not comfortable or you don't know how to take that L right now for something greater later, you're just gonna go and buy that.
That's what
because you never had it.
It's deeper than all the above, man. And that's the thing about this whole thing we call life, man. Like, we are put here. It's oppression, bro. This shit is beaten into our subconscious for I don't know how many generations in. That's the reason why you can be like, you know what? Let me pull up and buy this designer shit, even though I really don't have the money. That's the reason why you'll say, well, Dan, she had money, but I never knew.
Crazy.
The people, we're all from the islands. Everybody from the islands back in the days knows if you had some paper, you still driving that Toyota Tercel looking like you broke, but you got money, because it's bigger than that. But when we enter into the world of America, where they're systematically putting things on our way to keep us dumbed down, just know that, and then treat it like a video game afterwards. If you know they're systematically putting you here to keep you dumbed down, let's step away from the box. Let's look at it from a different angle. Let's say, how can we combat these things so that I don't fall into the rat race of being just like every other person? You black, you Spanish, you wasn't shit any motherfucking ways. They told you wasn't shit. So because you wasn't shit, that's enough drive right there to say, you know what? I need to get up off my ass and do something, because even if I fail, I wasn't shit anyways.
Right.
So I have nothing to lose by going after what I aspire to have, because they labeled me not shit. So every time I win, I'm beating the system.
Right.
They say if they call you ugly, Go after and bag the girl, bag the guy anyway. Because if you bag the person, you was winning because they labeled you ugly anyway.
You ain't have a chance.
You ain't have a chance.
It was something you said on Twitter the other day that I was like, yo, talk your shit. Because you were like, when everything is said and done, they switch the rules up on a nigga again. And guess what? I'm still in here for the long haul.
Yeah, everything is long term. I'm hard on women because women
he's definitely hard on me. Trust me. Every time I call him and I want to be a girl, that nigga don't. He gives me 30 seconds of me being a girl before he's like, all right, back to reality. Now what?
Yeah, I'm the Sagittarius. I'm the brutally honest. I'm the brutally honest person. I don't really. You gotta have thick skin to be around me. I'm not the everyday friend. I'm the one that's gonna tell you what you probably need to hear that you don't want to hear. Women, you guys run the world. You guys are beautiful. We are nothing without you guys. There's no reason why you shouldn't have whatever it is that you aspire to have, because even if you don't have the skill, you have beautiful looks. You can go and manipulate your way through anything and everything. You know what I mean? It can sound brash, but it's the truth.
Right.
There is nothing that you shouldn't be able to set your eyes on that you cannot have. You guys, everything that men do is for women. Everything. You know what I mean? So why can't you go?
I grew up in a household, my mom's a hustler, so that shit is crazy. Like, yo, there's nothing like an ambitious woman.
It's the easiest thing.
Women just be chilling. It's like, what?
Yeah, because if you work hard and you suck at it, let's do it all the way to the worst. You aspire to do something new. Let's say you're terrible at it. Just because you're a woman and you're trying, somebody is going to be willing to give you a helping hand. Period. No matter what. Like, the world is always going to open a door. Not everybody. The chivalry will always revolve around women. So I hate to see women not living the best that they can, because I'm just like, why not? You know what I mean?
See, this is the thing. And guys always want to go there with the whole woman and your looks and stuff like that. And people, you hear guys say all the time, if I had a pussy, I would have died.
I wouldn't say that, because
I know, no homo. I ain't talking about you, but I've heard the narrative before. If I had a pussy, I would have had all this shit because okay, yes, in theory, because as a man, you're wired differently. So it's different for a man to be very mechanical as opposed to, a woman, we have all of these things to our advantage. The problem is we motherfucking emotional. So we get hung up. We get hung up on things, and because we're not wired to be calculated as a man is. A man is very calculated. I feel even when it comes down to finances, when it comes down to even picking a mate, you may have the baddest bitch and you may have been rocking with her for however long time. But if you know that she's not wifey material, goodbye, bitch. You know why? Because you don't fit my long term. As opposed to a girl will sit there and know her nigga ain't shit, but because we love him and we see the potential and what we want him to be, we will make the wrong move based off of emotion.
Again, it's always going to go back into what do you want out of life, though? Again, I'm always going to go back and say, what do you aspire to have?
I want my ain't shit nigga to be shit for me.
So there you go. And there you go. And unfortunately,
you gotta find a new one.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And
you can help groom children, but you're not changing the grown ass man.
You're absolutely right.
And I can say that because I'm somebody who changed myself. I used to be a dude. I used to be one of these dudes running around wild crazy, and it's just like, yo. So it's a personal choice. You're gonna do it regardless, so you're not gonna do it.
No, it is a personal choice.
There's nobody that's gonna make you change. Period.
Free will, man. Free will is
anything. Yeah, fact.
Free will is crazy. And everything you say, like what you're saying, Posh, it sounds like we're speaking on grown woman and grown man time. Or anything outside of that is kiddie shit. A grown woman, when she's fully in her shell, she's gonna know what she wants. She may not have it. The men may not have it, but when they know what they want, like I know what kind of woman I aspire to have. That's the type of woman I have. You know what I mean? I feel like there's no.
And most men are intimidated by that, and women don't even take advantage of it. It's like 90% of guys are like intimidated by that woman. That's like assertive and knows what she wants. It's like no bullshit.
Like you don't have
trust me. We know they intimidated. There's a lot of ones that ended up on the chopping block, and I'm like, damn.
You know, like you said about men being calculated. I'll say we are who we surround ourselves with. Let's say 100%. What do you spend your 33% of your time with? 3.33 point something.
Right.
Divvy it up. You know what I mean? Like surround yourself with people who move a little different while you still keep your core social group. You know what I mean? Like expand, like go find, you need to always have you a married friend, a successfully married friend, a successfully single friend, and a friend that lives in between both, so that you know how to navigate and say what you aspire to be and what you wouldn't want to be like. But if you have none of those things in your life to grasp on, like it's going to be even that much harder. You know what I mean? But map out, like know what you want, like know the kind of man you want. You don't have to entertain everything that comes your way.
Right.
Everybody that you exchange numbers with, it doesn't mean that has to equate into your next boyfriend or girlfriend. You know what I mean? Like they can be good looking, but if they don't fall under the criteria list, then you don't have to entertain them past just, sleeping with each other if that's what you want to do. You know what I mean? Like it don't have to be all this emotions and shit. Like it doesn't have to be all that. You use your free will to entertain it, and then whatever. Like we repeat what we don't repair. You know what I mean? Like
say it again for the people with the cheap seats in the back.
We repeat what we don't repair. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's always going to go back into self-mastery, self-love, self-worth. If you don't even know what you value as yourself, if you don't value what people can and cannot say to you, like you're already preparing to lose. You know what I mean? And if you don't, I'm all over the place. We repeat what we don't repair. You know what I mean? How have we repaired where we fucked up at?
Yeah, I think people just need to put more of an emphasis on protecting your energy and who you're sharing that energy with and who you're exchanging energy with. Like me, my zone is super protected. Like I really speak to who I want to speak to or I'm intended to speak to, whether it's for business or whether it's personal or one of my boys that I grew up with or a loved one. And it's like, and outside of that, it's just like, yo, you have to reduce. Like, we only have a certain amount of capacity. And if you let nonsense fill up a majority of that mental capacity that you have, then it's gone. You're not really have any positivity to focus on the good stuff that you got going on or that you need to be focused on. It's just, like, all wasteful energy. And it's like, there's people that, like, I don't let people get to me or, like, have a conversation with me. If I really don't want to, it's just like, yeah, that's it. You're just not going to get a response or we're just not going to build this type of relationship or whatever. But that's completely okay.
And I will say that I feel like the people that I've seen be successful, their time is limited and they absolutely control what they're putting their time and effort and energy to. And with that said, I guess I want to give you an opportunity, CJ, to kind of give the people a background as far as like what you do and how you got there business-wise.
Shit. I wish I had a mentor. I wish, I grew up with a big brother, but I never had no mentor. I had my best friend, my other dude right here. We grew up saving lunch money. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't have a microwave in my house until I was in senior year in high school. You know what I mean? And I was told, like, I grew up, my brother was on the most wanted list at the neighborhood gas station. He wasn't most wanted when his friends was on the run, but he used my brother's identity. You know what I'm saying? I grew up where I got a phone call, hey, your brother's getting locked up at the Winn-Dixie store. He got locked up, you know what I mean, with a receipt in his hand. I grew up around oppression, you know what I mean? So I grew up told you wasn't going to be shit. I grew up hearing all the negative things and I just turned it into a positive, you know what I mean? I don't have a problem failing. They told you wasn't shit. Use that to your advantage, you know what I mean? Like, you can't change how you look, so just go with it. Just own everything, and once you can accept who you are, it's going to make everything that much easier. You're not going to be afraid to fail. Like, you know, I treat life with the mentality of, you know what, I'll have more regret not trying versus failing. So if God forbid, if my shit doesn't go how I need it to, I'll go pack up and live in my mom's house. You know what I mean? If I pulled up in my hoopty and you heard me speak, you're gonna respect me whether I drove a hoopty or my BMW. So like, all that material shit don't matter. What matters is what's in the mind. You know what I mean? And your mind will turn into the materials. Like, your brain will produce whatever the fuck it is your heart desires, guaranteed. So I can't answer that other than saying, like, I just have no problem being fearless. You know, I'll go sit in my mom's house, God forbid, and watch. I'll pay $60, get an Xbox prescription, and I'll watch porn and jack my dick every day. You know what I mean? I'm keeping it all the way 1,000 with you because I'd rather do that. I'm keeping it all the way 1,000 because whatever's in my brain, I believe it's going to turn into something magnificently huge one day. And I have no problem dying over it and failing over it. That's why I'll say, oh, people might assume whatever, but like, yo, I have so many scars from losing, you know what I mean? But I've won and I'm going to continue to win. And I'll say, you got to do the same.
As a small business owner, how do you think that what's going on currently in the world is going to affect your business? I know that that's something that you have to have thought a million times over because I know you don't even like to sleep when you like in that zone.
I mean, to be honest, man, it's affected the shit, you know. Essentials are still out there. We got a tow truck company. So the volume of cars being towed have dramatically decreased. But again, man, life is fucked up. You know what I mean? This pandemic will have you look in the mirror, whether you want to look in the mirror or not, especially for men at this point, because men are fathers. We're supposed to be the leaders of the household. You know what I mean? Like now is the time where you don't want to look your wives or your girlfriends or your kids in the face and not be able to provide for them. You know what I mean? Like we need to use this time as a lesson to cross our T's and dot our I's, save money. And it's okay if you only make $40,000 a year or $50,000 or whatever the dollar amount you make a year. You need to be able to say, when I get off of work, I need to build a side hustle. I need to build something else. If you are not content where you are financially, you know what I mean? I can sit down all year. You know what I mean? I'm fully prepared that this shit could shut down all year and I won't miss a car payment. I won't miss a mortgage, none of that. I've prepared for times like this all of my life. And like I've studied the Great Depression, 1929 to the 1930s. Like this is going to be one of the biggest changes of wealth. And I want to be a part of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'll just say, use this time now to always pretend, like just smoke you some weed and just live and pretend, my nigga. Like always prepare, like, yo, what if this happened? Would you be prepared to handle it? You know what I mean? And a lot of people aren't. And unfortunately, it's going to be a lot of fuck shit that's going to happen. The middle class will be completely wiped away. They said a statistic where the average American has $1,100 to their name. There's going to be a lot of people that make six figures that live check to check, and they're going to crash and burn right now, unfortunately. And I've been living through depression just for my heart seeing other people, but you got to prepare for the storms.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There's this thing called a financial advisor. They have them at banks. Go into the thing and ask to speak to a financial advisor. Ask them, hey, what could I do if I invested $150 a month? You never know. It might double in 10 years. You know what I mean? And this is a fact, though. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many different
finance. IRA would change your life.
Yeah, there's so many different
retirement age.
Yeah, there's so many different.
Just that.
Investment vehicles we can get into. You don't have to learn how to day trade. You don't have to know about stocks. Walk into your bank institution and ask to speak to the financial advisor.
I tried stock trading. I gave that shit to the wrong person, and yeah,
you know,
never see my money ever again.
Safe. You can play it safe and do it the right way, and also understand that it's over the life growth. It's not like, hey, that money might crash and go down for a little bit. You wait that 10 years, it'll be right back up. Like, that's a patient game.
Right.
It's a long game. You know what I'm saying? And it's something that, you know, that money that compounds, though, that is something that changes your life down the road if all else fails. Like, that $150 a month is not going to kill you right now.
Yeah, look into that with your children. You know, people that have parents that have kids, like, you know, sign them up, put $50 a month, speak to a financial advisor, see if you open up a Roth IRA for them, where would they be at? Because if we can't save ourselves, we can save our children. And that's where the generation and the oppression that they put over us, we haven't been able to pass generational wealth down. Right.
We don't. And, you know, growing up, I just know that my parents were always like, you know, save, you know, no credit cards. And it was interesting growing up in my household only because my mom came from having nothing. But then quite the opposite of that, my dad came from an affluent family. So to my dad, it's very interesting because my dad is the spender and my mom is the saver. So they always go back and forth at home because it's nothing for my dad to, you know, swipe his credit card because he's always thinking like, oh, I'll pay it off when I get my check.
Right.
As opposed to my mom's like, you know, my mom's the opposite of that. She's like, no, you save that because you don't know if you have a check coming or not, because at any point in time, you can be laid off.
That's a beautiful balance.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It's a beautiful balance. It works. It sounds like the yin and the yang is, so it works.
It works.
It works.
I've seen it. My parents have both the balance, but mine is the opposite, right? Like my dad came from, a family from up in the mountains that didn't, have much. They didn't have much, and I saw that side of the family. And then my mom's and her siblings were my grandfather, back in the old country, he was pretty wealthy. So my mom spends way more. My dad, he'll be cool. Like my dad could go buy a Sentra and just drive that around. My mom would just go buy a Benz, So it's like I've seen both of that balance growing up. Like my mom was like, oh, it's New Year's, I'm gonna go buy this $1,000 dress. My pops was like, oh, I'm gonna just grab something out of the closet and take it to the dry cleaners and I'll be all right. So I've seen both the balance and how it works, but also when you spend like that, I've also seen where my mom's like, yo, your dad works. He's a worker. He's an employee. That's not going to allow me to live that life that I want to live. So my mom was a hustler. She is a hustler. Like I've seen my mom do real estate. I've seen my mom own cleaning service company. My mom owned a bodega. I've seen my mom so it's like the only way. So from my understanding, it's like, yo, you want to live like that? You got to go hustle for it.
Yeah.
So it's like, you got to have that too.
Hell yeah.
That shit ain't, it's not dropping out the sky.
Right, for sure. And I mean, do you guys? I'm very guilty of this because I really should read a lot more than I make time for.
Audiobooks.
But is there any particular, let's say, financial advisor that's out there that you guys particularly lean on?
I got introduced to a financial advisor from a friend of mine. Whenever we finish this recording, I can pass the information if you want. I feel like to everybody at home, never be afraid. Like, we got to stop the crab in the barrel mentality. Like, the well is never going to run out of water. You know what I mean? If you have if you're in a particular industry and you felt like you've cracked into the code where you're making some money, like, stop being a crab trying to hold people away. Like, share information. It's nothing to just pass on, yo, this number here, or this, I've heard this is about to happen. Like, when there's so much strength in numbers versus just feeling like, oh, I got all the money, I'll pay for this. Like, yo, teach somebody how to fish. It's okay to share like your contacts. You know what I mean?
Right.
Absolutely.
Like for me,
absolutely. I have a group of people that I rely on. Again, going back to surrounding yourself with the right people. Mm-hmm. Like I know financial advisors that I've worked with in the past and in a business sense, but I also rely on them and use that as a tool for information. And I was like, oh, if you know anyone, just anyone that works in the stock market or works in banking, like, I just call them and ask them information. Like, people don't mind talking about themselves or talking about their jobs. Like, that's one thing I learned a long time ago. Like, people are not opposed to it. If you find people that really are good at what they do, like, they're more than willing to share information as well. So it's like, you can also reach out to people blindly. I do it all the time. And then people I don't know and say, hey, what's up? This is what I do. So I want to learn from you. And that's it. Like, there's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
It goes a long way. It'll get you far.
Yeah, and everybody's not for every day. You know what I mean? I think once as adults, once we can get to the understanding that, oh shit, like, we don't have to talk every day for us to be solid. When you have that person that you can lean on, that you can ask for advice and give you their experience, like, they're going to be so appreciative to just share their game. And at the end of the day, like, you don't got to call them every day. You know what I mean? Right. They can be a seasonal person, and they're going to be very happy to just they'll be very happy to let you enter into their world. I have a buddy where every Christmas, he's like, when people are opening their Christmas gifts, I'm sending out 100 thank you text messages. During times like this, getting into like how we should cope through the pandemic, there's people out there that are feeling helpless and they don't know what to do. Well, if you're feeling helpless, how about you become helpful? In the midst of you being helpful to someone else, they have to reciprocate the energy. You know what I mean? So were you helping out? Oh, shit, can you come help me set up the podcast, blah, blah, blah. Oh, in the midst of you setting up the podcast, hey, is there anything you need, Amber? Blah, blah, blah. And now I've reciprocated the energy. And I feel like people, we get too caught up worrying about ourselves, whereas we're like, oh, fuck, it's fucked up times. I don't know what to do. Go outside and get in your phone, ask, hey, shit is fucked up right now. Is there anything I can do to help? They might say, yeah. They might take you up on that. When they take you up on that offer, what do? You naturally have conversation. You'll tell them what you have going on, then they'll naturally reciprocate it, and now they'll offer their assistance in helping you. And now that you guys are both an asset to one another versus a liability with no one to call on.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And to add to that, you know, like a lot of people even like, you know, I took a break from the podcast and a lot of people were kind of wondering like, what was going on with, you know, with Posh? How come you stopped recording? Are you still doing your podcast? This, that, the third. And it was something that I didn't feel comfortable talking about until after, you know, you get out of the situation and you kind of feel like, all right, now I'm good again. I could talk about it, you know. And I'm going to be real transparent. Like, I fell onto very hard financial times last year. And it wasn't until, you know, now that I'm back, you know, now I feel comfortable, you know, talking about it. But I remember, like, you know, I'm used to, I've been working for as long as I could fucking remember. Like, I've always found a way to make money. It's all I've seen in my family as far as like the women are concerned. I could tell you when I was 7 years old, my parents had this crazy idea. They wanted to go live in Dominican Republic. They moved us from Jersey to DR. Niggas in DR never heard of a pancake back then. They know what that was. We used to eat in fucking mangú and shit every morning for breakfast. So my ass told my mom, and I thank God for certain things. Me and my mom may not always get along or see eye to eye when it comes to certain things, but there's certain values that she did instill in me. And I'll never forget my mom giving me however much it was at the time. She said, all right, you want to open up a little business? I'm going to give you the money and we're going to go to the store. But as soon as you make your money back, I want my money back. So that was my first introduction to lending. She lent me the money to start up my business.
That's dope though, man.
So we went to the store, we bought pancake mix, and I took my ass home. First thing Monday morning, I woke up at 7 years old, woke up at 6:30 in the morning. And I went into the kitchen, I started making my pancakes, and I started selling pancakes to the neighborhood kids.
Hustle.
And at that time, my mother taught me, okay, you put this money back, you know, you give me my money back, because now you have your own money. You put this money away, and now this money is for investment. And this is the money you're going to use to go back to the store and buy the ingredients so that you can go ahead and do it again next week. And then that transitioned into me, you know, doing housekeeping and me working in a hair salon and me going into real estate. And I always had that blueprint at such a young age. Like, you put this much, you can enjoy some of it, but you always want to make sure that you're putting something away. You always want to make sure you have something to show for it, you know? And even, you know, like navigating life as a single mom and everything else, you know, my dream, I remember I used to always drive through Windermere. And I would always see, you know, all these houses. And I'm like, yo, I want to live in Windermere. And me being in real estate, I would go home, get on the MLS, and be like, oh, shit, I'm never going to be able to live in Windermere unless I have like a rich husband or something, because who the fuck is just living in Windermere, you know?
You cannot have limited beliefs.
But I thought like that at one point, you know? Like, and I used to just drive around, you know?
My mom used to do the same with me. We used to go, when I was growing up, I remember going to mansions and doing tours of houses.
Yeah.
She'd be like, oh, you're going to buy one of these. You're going to buy one of these for mom one day. Like, you're going to buy one of these for mom one day. Still haven't done it, but we're going to get there. But, like, I did, like, so it's the same thing. Like, I know CJ drives around and does the same thing and goes to these cribs. And, like, you know, it's you have to find these aspirations. Like, there's nothing wrong with material aspirations, because it's like, yo, this house is worth costs $1 million. Then you know you have to be in a financial place.
That's about $5,000 and change a month, though, man. That's about $5,000 and change a month. I done priced them.
Right.
I done priced them. It's about $5,000 and change, 20% down. Whatever it is you aspire to have in life, like, get obsessive with it. We're such extremists in toxic ways. We're not extremists in in things that's going to nurture us in productive ways. Like, yo, it's okay. Like, if you like a certain car, go price that motherfucker. Build, you know what I mean? I've built boats. I've built cars. I know exactly the trim level. I've all the above. I've been on the Range Rover website with the white and red leather. It's going to be this much more. This, that, and the third. Because if you know what it takes, you're going to know.
You're going to want to work for it.
You're going to know exactly how much grind I got to do. In my 24 hours a day, like, I can smoke a blunt, but after that, like, it's game time. I don't got time to really key with people, you know what I'm saying? Because I know to get that $1 million house is about $5,000 and change a month, and I need 20% down. But when you know the specifics,
do y'all understand what I did here today? Getting both of these gentlemen in here.
You know what I mean? But like, to go back, start from the beginning. Like, when you created the Posh Sessions, everything you do with intent.
Right.
If you shoot the gun, you shoot to kill. You know what I mean? When someone asks you for your number and you talk, if they don't come correct, they need to see the door. When people understand your level of how serious you are, they're either going to get intimidated and they're going to wipe themselves out,
and
or they're going to
trash will
step
take
up.
itself out.
Or they will step up and do anything that it takes to be able to fit under your umbrella. When you want to get into that dream home or that dream car, you're going to do whatever it takes because the banks ain't going to qualify you if you don't come with the necessary criteria.
Period.
So why is it any different when it comes to human interaction? That's way more personal than a material object.
And when I wanted that house, let me tell you, I used to go through Windermere. And I mean, I'm not in Ellsworth. Don't get it fucked up. And a bitch ain't there yet. However, I always remember I wanted to live in Windermere. Like, that was the spot, you know? And it wasn't until I started, you know, like, I saw a house I wanted. And this was more or less around the time before the market kind of really took off and peaked the way that that you see now. But I remember I saw the house and I was like, all right, how much I got to make? And I had credit card debt. And you remember I kept telling you, I was like, where you at, Posh? Working, soaking up all the overtime, getting rid of all my credit card debt, because I knew that in order for me to qualify for this house, I need to have a good debt to income ratio.
Facts.
A lot of people, and that's another thing I kind of want to touch on during these times, people want to talk about credit so fucking much. Credit. Let's be clear. Credit is when you can't buy it. That's what your credit is for. It's to say I'm good for it because I don't have the money to back it up. So therefore my credit is speaking for me. But in times like this, cash is king. Because I was even having a conversation with Marv. I said to him, I said, you know, I want to pay off some of my credit cards, but I don't know if it's such a good idea right now. And what you tell me?
I said, hold on to as much cash as you can right now. Pay the minimum, keep it moving. Because at the end of the day, no one's judging your credit right now. Whether it's like, as long as you're keeping up right now and you're holding shit down, like, no one is judging beyond that. Like, when we go back to, again, when you said like last year it was rough, whatever, like, we've all been there. We've all had to sit down, take the L, and then come back, right? But right now, it's like people are moving into uncharted territory. Like, people are about to hit hard. This is about to come, like, people are about to realize what it really is out here. Like, there's not going to be, the well is going to be dried up for a little while. So it's like, if you're relying on just the government or somebody to hold you down because they send a $1,200 check right now, it's like, you're out of your mind.
You was out of your mind beforehand thinking on them.
And pay your minimums and hold on to as much cash as possible, because you don't know what, okay, after July, the stimulus runs out, right? The additional, whatever they're giving, $600 a week runs out. Now you're living off of whatever your state unemployment is. In Florida, it's like $275 a week or whatever, right? And then you're living off of that. In New York, it's like $500. Certain places are different depending where you live. So it's like, are you surviving off of that? Are you feeding a family off of that? Are you feeding yourself off of that? It's like, nah. So it's like, hold on to everything you can right now, and until you can figure out what's going on, because we don't know what tomorrow looks like.
Agreed. And getting it, how we're, I think it's a dope little segue. Coping. What kind of intent are we all anticipating having once this is over with? You know what I mean? Like, you know, some people are saying, I'm seeing a whole bunch of memes, like, if you don't come out this thing with a new skill or new trade or new this, that, and the third, you wasted your time. I don't necessarily agree with that, you know, because everybody is different. You know what I mean? How are you coping through this pandemic right now? Marv and Posh.
Eating.
For me,
I'm immediately coping by eating.
I usually don't have free time. Like, anybody that knows me, I usually don't have a lot of time to myself, a lot of time to, like, spare, period. So for me, I've been, you know, looking at the positive. You know, I talk to my parents every single day, and that's not usually the case, right, unfortunately. But I talk to them every single day, making sure they're good, which is a priority. And then just catching up with people I haven't caught up with in a while, whether it's friends, families, loved ones. Just catching up with people and playing Mad Xbox, spending some time brainstorming, you know, new aspirations, journaling, whatever it is, in that realm. But a majority of my energy is going to, like, just being at peace and, like, making sure my family is good, which is a priority right now. Yeah,
I agree. I think that I wouldn't say we should put pressure on ourselves to say, I need to learn how to do something new. I'll just say that I do think that we need to take the time to just say, once these doors open back up and we're allowed outside again, everything that we do, we need to move with intent. Like anything, like all this blindfold, we just winging it shit, it needs to go out the window. Like everything we need to do needs to have a little bit of precision and calculations. You know what I mean? Like we have so much time. I'm eating like a motherfucker. I probably gained 15 pounds. No bullshit. I'm depressed, bro. I'm coping through
I've
eating.
Been doing great. I've actually been doing great because I'm usually stress eating from from
I'm waking up at noon, bro. I've woken up at noon. I wake up at 10. But if you know me in real life, man, I'm up at 7, no alarm.
Right.
I'm 365. The only time I'll take a break is on vacation.
Going to the gym at like 8.
Yeah, I'll take a break on vacation.
Like 3 hours.
So I don't think it's people should feel guilty about not doing anything unless you really know you should be doing more. But outside of that, we just need to be able to just say, we need to just create a game plan on just saying, I'm going to just move with a little bit more precision when this is over with and a little bit more intent.
I feel like for me, like, I mean, outside of like, you know, the joke, whatever, I have been eating. But I think that it has been interesting just to see how life how life is kind of like adapting to the circumstances, right? Because at one point, you know, myself, I have kids, you know, we were like, damn, what's going to happen with school? You know, what's going to happen? And then now everything is virtual. Lightly touch on the fact that a lot of these corporations and retail stores that we thought had all of this, you know, like,
they're like the damn truck industry. He got 2 weeks, he's done.
You know, worth behind them. You know, I read that Neiman Marcus was about to file for bankruptcy. You know, like we're going to see, I think, a lot of changes even in the retail world. You know, a lot of people, we've had no choice but to, you know, do things online now. Yeah,
shit is funky right now. But make no mistake, the people at Neiman Marcus, them CEOs are still paid. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, of course.
They're still paid. They're fine. They have those Roth IRAs we were talking about. They have those stacked to the roof. They're good. Like, they don't have, you know, they don't have to worry about too much outside of that. I think, really, I'm an extremist in this way. I think the whole world, as we know, has changed. There's a lot of people that are still having a hard time accepting it. And those are the people that you see every day, like still complaining and wanting everything to return like it was yesterday. Like that's gone. Like that, as we know it, is gone. Like look at how things are going to continue changing now. It's like, why are schools and institutions going to be spending, you know, all this money to have everyone go to these buildings every day and pay all these staff if now they see that, you know, a kid could go through a whole year and learn from the PC.
And do things virtually.
It's like, how do you adjust to that? Now it's like, oh, their parents have to work from home. But a lot of people have been working from home. So the people that do work in these environments, that if you're privileged enough to where your life is still able to function in that way, then those things are going to evolve and change in my mind for forever. Like a lot of the businesses, like retail stores, like those things are going to be closed for a while or at limited capacity, like a mall. When are you going to be able to fill up malls again? So it's like a lot of those businesses are just going to... You
see AMC Theater said that like they're filing...
Technology advances like 10 years in the 2 months that this pandemic happened. It pushed us more towards technology in 10 years of the road that would have took us 10 years to travel. So that's how I look at it. But, right. I mean, whether people choose to accept it or not, that's their own.
Facts. I think we should let this time, like, instead of being scared and, you know, they want us to be afraid, like, we need to let this time to where it's just like, let's find a way to get inspired. You know what I mean? Like, let's find a way to create some fire up under our asses. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
It's time to look in the mirror. It's time to self-reflect. It's time to create and understand who we are as individuals, what makes us happy, what makes us sad. Because if we know all of our good and our bad, no one can defeat us.
And it's made me more creative too, because like I had created I went to a smokers party, and I was telling her yesterday, it was one of the dopest experiences that I had, all because of the vibe that it created. It wasn't in a, you know what I'm saying, like an affluent community. It was very much in the hood. But the way that everyone came together and the vibe of the whole thing, it was something that I wanted to recreate in Orlando for a very long time. And unfortunately, because it was weed, you know, all the clubs were very like, you know, it was door after door after door shut in my face, right? Like, nope, we're not doing it. And I'm sitting here like, but why? We in here smoking anyways, you know? But they were like, no. So in the midst of all this happening, I said, well, you know what? How are we supposed to interact with one another if we're all supposed to be quarantining? And, you know, we are not supposed to be gathering more than 10 people, this, that, the third, taking all these measures, right? Well, a friend of mine put together a Zoom party, and it was just a group of us in there, just, hanging out, taking shots, playing music in the background, like trying to recreate the vibe that we would create if we were all hanging around each other. So I was like, you know what? 2 years I've been working on this goddamn The Secret Smoker Society and putting this damn party together. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a Zoom party, and we going to figure out how this is all going to work. Let's just try it. Worst case scenario, we did it. It's a success. Best case scenario, it's a success. Worst case scenario, didn't work out. And they'll give me at least the opportunity, like you said, whether I won or whether I failed, to go back to the drawing board and tweak it and make it better for the next time. But it's a part of your
resume now. You know what I mean? Like, that's the most important thing, is to be able to just say, I did what I wanted to do. You know what I mean? Whether it's successful or not, once you do the first one, you'll be able to look back and say, damn, I kind of fucked up here, I'll tweak it there, or this, that, and you'll be able to just move on and and it'll strengthen you so much more than you'll ever imagine. Like, now you're going to be so headstrong, right? You know what I mean? Where you just be fearless, like, fuck it. Like, no one can tell you, no one's supposed to tell you shit anyways. You're posh, I'm a beautiful woman, I'm an adult. Like, no one should, that's how you're supposed to move. Nobody should be able to tell me anything. The same thing. Be royal in your own fashion. Act like a queen to be treated like one. Act like a king to be treated like one. Right. You know what I mean? Like, no one should be able to tell you anything. They got to knock on your door.
And it's crazy too, because in this whole pandemic situation, right, I have the furniture company, and one of the biggest complaints I used to always get, because the company that I use for delivery, they are used to delivering to stores. They're not used to doing residentials, although they can, but they don't. So with that said, one thing that they didn't really offer was assembly. So a lot of these people were coming to me like, oh my God, your prices are so great, but I don't want to put this shit together myself. And don't get me wrong, it ain't IKEA furniture, but let's say, for example, if you buy a bed typically has your headboard, your footboard, your railings. There's 3 pieces. People didn't even want to bother setting that up. And long and behold, this pandemic, now what does Room to Go do? Oh, free doorway delivery. Motherfucker, you can't come into my house. So the very same thing y'all were complaining about that my people weren't doing, guess what? Rooms to Go can't do it either. So it's been very interesting.
Everyone has to adjust. It's uncharted times. Everybody's going to have to figure out a way to move differently and get it a different way than we're accustomed to.
Yeah, man.
And that's no matter what industry you work in.
Right.
Yeah, you're only going to be as good as your ability to adapt. Period.
That is very true. If you're not able to adapt to change, everybody, I mean, look at what happened with BlackBerry. I loved me a BlackBerry.
I hated them. I never had one. Sorry.
What?
Sorry.
I never had one.
That's that BBM shit?
Yes.
That's just trash, man.
BBM days was lit.
BBM, man. That shit sound like some porn category, man. I don't know, man. I ain't never rocked with the Blackberries, man. I had a sidekick, though. I fucked with the sidekick.
I went from sidekick to iPhone. I didn't land in the BlackBerry.
I don't even know what y'all did. Them shits was trash.
Rock Nation ain't give you a BlackBerry, Marv?
I haven't been. I was there. I started there a year ago.
Yeah, right. Anyway, I loved BlackBerry, but BlackBerry was the same thing. When iPhone came out, they just could not keep up with the technology, so they crashed and burned. And that's exactly what's going to happen. If you're not able to adapt and keep up with the change, because that's the one thing that's constant, right, is change. If you're not able to adapt to what the fuck is going on around you, you're going to inevitably just be non-existent anymore.
We have to be innovative right now. You know what I mean? If you have any sort of visionary talent, now is the time to put it on the fucking platform so people can see what you see. You know what I mean? Like, now is the time, because if not, like, you're gonna get left behind. Yeah. No questions about it. Like, you will be left behind. It's going to be unfortunate. But again, it's always going to go back into self-esteem, because if you love yourself enough, you'll find a way to adapt. Or you'll crumble and just...
Absolutely.
Or you'll just fall back on a crutch and just start giving me the woe is me speech. And we ain't got time for that. But again, there's going to be people that live in mansions.
You got 5 minutes to hit him with the woe is me speech before he'd be like, next.
Yeah, you know?
Yeah. And then...
one thing to go off of that, just about loving yourself, and like what this is exposing as well, it's exposing what personal health means and what it means to like put the right things in your body every day and not to be eating the bullshit, because when you get to 60 years old, a pandemic can hit and you have fucking diabetes,
right?
And now your body can't fight it. Like, we have to be on it. Like, most of the people that are passing away are Black and Spanish or minorities. Like, and a lot of it is from the habits that we've had all of our lives, and the Kool-Aid and the fried chicken. And I'm not trying to be stereotypical. That's like what I had growing up, and you're eating cookies every day and oodles and noodles and hot dogs and shit like that. And it's like, as adults, we have to be accountable to what we put in our body,
right?
Because look at what's going on outside.
Absolutely.
When something beyond our control happens.
But that's when it comes down to self-esteem, and we have to aspire to have more. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'll put my tinfoil on my head and call me conspiracy theorist. You know what I mean? It's no coincidence that it's attacking our people more than any other people in the world. But hey, let's get to it, and let's no longer be a statistic. Yeah. And that's why we have to fight the power.
You know what's crazy? Speaking of food, right? So I was talking to Burger. And Burger's mad funny, but he says to me, he's like, yo, my man's went to Dominican Republic and he was there with his lady for 2 weeks. And do you know what this nigga noticed? And I was like, what? He's like, his shit didn't stink anymore. And I'm like, what? So he was like, yeah, his shit don't stink. And he was like, so when I thought about it, what he was trying to say, I mean, outside of the obvious, right? The food. Yeah. The food is different. Yeah. It's more natural. It's coming from the ground, as opposed to America. We're all about mass production, cutting costs. How can we make this shit bigger? You know what I'm saying? And keep it cheap. So, you know, people make fun of me sometimes because I'm like, oh no, it's not organic, or it's not this, or it's not that. Or like, I personally have cut like certain things out of my diet. Like I said, right now I've been kind of wilding, but you know, like the dairies, you know, and things like that. Like I've really, and it's been hard for me because I grew up in a rice and beans and, you know what I'm saying, some sort of meat kind of household. My mom wasn't big on vegetables or, you know, really feeding us stuff like that. So as an adult, trying to make that transition, you know, to be healthy, and because, I am vain and I want to look good. But, you know, it was difficult for me to transition.
Yeah.
And it was because
it's not an easy thing.
I wasn't raised eating certain foods, but then even doing more research on it as to why you should and why it's not even vegetables, because vegetables right now, you know, can have X amount of pesticides and things of that nature that are still bad for you. And here you are thinking you're eating healthy when really you're not.
Yeah, I just think too much, man. We just want... Go ahead, Marv.
No, but it's still better than a piece of steak that you don't know how many months it's been dead for. Same in that package.
Man, I'm eating that steak, bro.
Yo, listen, I ain't even gonna hold you.
We ain't gonna go down that lane, big fella. I'm eating the steak.
When we are allowed to go outside again, the one place I'm going to is Del Frisco's. I need me a steak, man.
Hey, Granny lived to about 90, man. She ate everything under the sun.
But it's different, man. Like, I went to Cape Verde for 3 weeks, right? I spent 3 weeks out there. And I was eating super clean. I was eating red meat, but it was like, yes, I also seen a goat walking around yesterday. You feel me? So, like, it didn't go through this whole transition into, like, by the time it touched my freezer, I don't know what the hell happened to it. Which could be with anything, but I just feel with, like, animals, it's a little different. Like, and I'm not even vegetarian and nothing like that, but I just say the amount of intake has to be controlled. But it's not only that, it's just, like, even the packaged foods and all that stuff, too, like, just control it. Like, if it doesn't look like it came from the earth, like, it's probably not that great for you. We're not saying we can't.
No, I agree with you, bro.
Yo, Marv, what was Jay-Z serving at the brunch?
What do you mean?
Them niggas have never eaten on that.
We just want to know, is he eating healthy or not?
He wasn't serving anything. He was hanging out.
You don't ever see none of the artists eating.
Well, you know, not him personally serving. What he had out there.
You don't want to go to a vibe where you're all dressed up and have a plate of food in your hand. Like, you know, you're dressed you got your good clothes on. You got the good fabrics on. You don't want to be walking around taking photos and but nah, there was food there. It was great food there. Mm-hmm. It's funny because I hear this question everywhere. Like, I listen to podcasts and hear people joke about it.
Yeah, them niggas don't never got food on. They never got food on display, man.
The people want to know. You've been in places we aspire to be.
And guys, I don't post it on social media like that. So just for everybody to know, like, you could be in rooms and don't have to post them every day.
Yeah.
Trust me.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's a dope vibe. Like, I aspire to be in those. Like, I had conversations with friends probably 10 years ago about things that I'm doing now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've told people that I wanted to do deals. I mean, CJ, we talked for years. Like, I wanted to do deals for, like, the big artists and, like, the biggest artists in the game. And it's like,
yeah, bro, we have.
Again, setting your intention. Like, I told him I wanted to do this before I did it. You know what I'm saying? Like years before.
That's a fact. Yeah, I purposely won't go to New York City. I know so many niggas that live in New York. I refuse to go to New York City until there's a big business deal or something of real value for my own ego. While I'm going to see the big city for the first time. That's just in my own head. But you got to.
He could pull up and to show him that I'm the man in the city. He's not coming out here.
Yo, he got big dreams, boy.
Yeah, man. I mean, but from the eating, from this, that, and the third.
It's like I hold myself accountable because I'm like, I can't let my guy down.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point, man.
Accountability.
Accountability.
Like, we spend time exchanging energies, and it's like I can't sell him a dream, tell him I want all this shit, and then he's like, "Yo, what have you been doing?" "Oh, no, I'm just chilling."
Right.
Like, what do you mean, bro? You just told me you wanted all this.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like, at the end of the day, like, we have our immediate circles, but it's always good to, like, yo, keep in touch. We speak every once in a while, like, whenever you feeling like you going through something or you want to level up, call that accountability partner. Call me up, Posh. I'll tell you the deal, whether you want to hear it or not. Tell me the deal, whether I want to hear it or not.
Most times I don't want to hear it.
Because, at the end of the day, once we hang up the phone, we go back to our normal lives, but we go back and now we've created a balance.
Right. Now I'm like, okay, somebody's holding me accountable to this, so I have to do it now. Yeah,
like now's the time where Marv was speaking about food. It all goes back to self-esteem, because when you love yourself, you're going to take care. You're going to take pride in how you look. You're going to take pride in what you eat. When you love yourself sincerely, you're going to take pride in who you allow to even talk to you a certain type of way. You're going to take pride in who the fuck you even want to entertain. Like, it is an honor to be in our presence.
Right.
And that's not anything conceited. It is an honor for me to be able to shake your hand for the first time I meet you. I'm entering your world and vice versa. But I don't have to remain here if I'm not doing what you need me to do. You know what I mean? Like, we met through Twitter. Cool, great. But if I'm behaving in a fashion that is not what you consider royalty, kick me the fuck out and let me go back to my world and let me run amok in my world, because there's no room for that tolerance over here. You know what I mean? It's no different. And I'm just I'll always go back to women, because like you guys are too important to the earth and to allow shit to not go y'all way. And you'll say, men say that all the time, and I'll say that in my own standard, like, yo, I'm not saying that as a man that just say, oh, women should do it. As a man, I hold myself accountable. I'm going to move a certain way. I'm going to dance to my own beat and drum, and people are going to match that, period. You know what I mean? I know that for me, I wish everybody could do the same for themselves, because this world is a beautiful place, and it's an ugly place as well. It's just what side of the fence do you want to live on, the good side or the ugly side? But free will determine how we live our life.
Right. Well,
I want the fabrics. I want the good fabrics.
You want the good fabrics? I think we all want the good fabrics, right? At the end of the day, that's what we work so hard for.
I want to pull up on Marvin, New York or LA or a big city, and I want to be able to look back at conversations that we've had in the past, and him being huge in his lane and me being huge in my lane, and to look back and just laugh. I like to sit back and, hey, Posh, let's go have a drink at this part, and pull up in Dr. Phillips' restaurant row and have good margaritas, you know what I mean? Looking back,
you still need to do the margaritas. I mean?
Like, oh shit, you pull up in the Benz, I'll pull up in this, and this is how adults should, interact with one another, looking back at the fruits of their labor paying off.
Right,
you know
absolutely.
What I mean?
Well,
at the end of the day, you're gonna get paid something for your time, whether it's $10 an hour, whether it's a certain percentage of a deal, whether it's a certain fee as a consultant, whether it's an hourly rate, whether it's a salary, whatever it is. Like, somebody's paying you something, or you're figuring out a way to pay yourself a certain amount for your time. Like, how much you want to get paid for your time? And that's it.
Yes, sir. Well, we have been doing this for a good hour and some change, almost an hour and a half now. So I'm going to be wrapping this up, but I do want to say thank you so much, CJ, for coming through.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Marv. I hit him up so last minute. He still came through. So I really do want to thank you. And you come
anytime.
Very highly spoken of. I do want to say, from my brother Julio and telling me, your business dealings with him, and Scream also, speaks very highly of you. And, those
are my people.
I really appreciate you guys taking the time out in the middle of what we have going on. I mean, at the end of the day, whether you have nothing to do, you didn't have to do this. And I don't take that lightly. And I really do want to, thank both of you guys for being here. CJ has his own podcast, MyWay, MyTerms. He is on Twitter. Is your Instagram handle the same? Casanova 407 _ 876.
Yeah, correct.
Marv, I mean, you can find Marv under, the Rock Nation brunch Twitter, but it is Marvin Resende. And of course, I am the Posh Sessions. Please tell a friend to subscribe, rate, comment. If you have any questions that you would like for me to answer, you can email me at theposhsessionspodcast@gmail.com. Of course, I want to say a very special thank you to the best audio engineer in the world, Mr. Lemy Currey. And I look forward
My guy, Lemy.
And we look forward to doing this next week, 2 weeks from now. I don't know. We'll figure something out. Till next time, peace.